Hello again. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. Tonight I'm talking about a new Netflix paranormal mystery thriller series called Lockwood Co. It's based on a UK young adult book series by Jonathan Stroud, and it stars Ruby Stokes as Lucy Carlyle, Cameron Chapman as Anthony Lockwood, and Ali Haji Heshmati as George Karim. Now, the premise of this show is pretty interesting. So, in an alternate version of our world, an event called The Problem happened, which allows the spirits of the dead to harass, attack, and even do physical bodily harm to people. So what happens is that various what are called psychical agencies are established to essentially repel these spirits, or at the very least contain them. Now, Lucy Carlyle is a young girl, and she's classified as a listener. She can hear different aspects of ghosts or paranormal activity and things like that. You have different agents that have different talents. You have clairvoyant, you have clairaudience. You have people that have what appears to be psychometry, like the supposed ability of understanding the history of an object or a place by being in intimate contact with it, things like that. It's a very interesting sort of paranormal setup. Well, when she's trying to establish herself, unfortunately, one of her first missions goes awry, Lucy. One of her first missions goes awry, and so she decides to hoof it to London to try and sign up with one of the bigger agencies to provide better security, both financially and career-wise for herself. But that's easier said than done, especially since most people that have these psychic abilities, they're mostly very, very young, or they're teenagers. What happens is they refer to their psychic abilities as talents, and as they get older, their talents start to fade away. So adults that run these various agencies and services, many were once able to actually pursue paranormal investigation or, ghost disbursement, whatever you want to call it. They used to be able to do that. However, that is no longer the case as your talent fades as you get older. I do like that as a limiting factor. And you can tell, this is being derived from a young adult fiction source. You can tell that this was something that there's a reason why, these kids or these teenagers are in the driver's seat because of this. Because they actually do have those senses. They still have the capabilities that make them a valuable asset in trying to contain these strange forces. Now, from what I've been able to do, I did a little research on this, and it appears that this first season is derived partially from 3 different story arcs. And for the most part, as far as the pros of the show go, I have to say it's an interesting premise. It's a very quick watch at only 8 episodes. It feels very, and those who have been with the show for a while, I do appreciate succinct economic adaptations, and this definitely does feel like that. For the 8 episodes, you have about 2 or 3 mysteries. I say 2 or 3 because from the first mystery arc that is more or less summarized within the first 3 episodes, it is still entangled with the remaining 5 episodes. So, okay, if you want to pick apart semantics, technically you can say that this first season contains 3 mystery arcs, or 2. It all depends on how you want to phrase it. So, but Lucy, getting back to Lucy and Lockwood Co. So a lot of agencies require certain legal, permissions, which Lucy does not have. Unfortunately, she left her previous agency because the people that were running it were incompetent, and they didn't really think too much about the endangerment of their agents, like these kids, these teenagers. And so legally, she's a runaway. And so no, self-respecting agency is actually, no upright agency, perhaps is a better way to, perhaps is a British way of putting it, will actually hire her on because, well, she's a legal liability, understandably so. But then she comes across Lockwood Co, and it's her last option. So it's run by two agents. It's run by Anthony or Tony Lockwood and George Kareem. It's a standout among the various agencies in London because it's incredibly small. Lockwood and Kareem are the only agents that are actually in operation of it. And so, from a mixture of really taking notice of Lucy's heightened abilities, because in this world she is a bit of a prodigy with regards to her listening skills, her clairaudience, and, well, three heads are better than two. When it comes right down to it. They never frame it in that way in the show itself, but there has to be a level of desperation with regards to this. Especially because, they suggest that only Lockwood has been going on various, jobs and missions. And the problem, essentially, the ghosts and spirits can do harm to people as soon as it becomes night. And so there are business opportunities abounding, for the right agencies, but Lockwood Co. has a personnel problem. The only two of them, Anthony Lockwood is also, he's very talented at what he does. He's very much an up-and-comer. He has his own psychic abilities to see what are referred to as death glows in order to be able to see spirits, apparitions, but also able to ascertain how someone perished and add that into, data to help solve the various cases that they undertake. George Kareem, they don't really mention what his particular talents are. He is the brains of the operation. He is the researcher. He is the one that he manages clues regarding linguistics, forensics, things like that. So he is a bit of a genius in and of himself. All three of these characters are outstanding with regards to their abilities. And for the show itself, they actually do have a great deal of chemistry between them. Everything is a test. Everything is very difficult because there's only three of them. And so every single case that they have, they take it 110% seriously. And there's absolutely zero margin for error. Now, that being said, of course, they do run into a number of obstacles and a few mysteries and conspiracies. But I'm not going to give anything about those away as of right now, because if you want to get into the know about that, then watch these 8 episodes. They're very good. Something I also do appreciate, I always appreciate action, or a very decent amount of action with TV shows and movies that I watch. One of the main tools in the arsenal of these agents is iron, silver nitrate, things like that. The traditional things that we kind of presume to ward off evil spirits, they do use them. And one of the go-to tools that these paranormal agents use when they're hunting or when they're trying to undertake an investigation against these spirits, these hostile spirits, is they have swords, they have rapiers. And so because they always have these swords at, on their person, we do see a decent number of sword fights throughout the season. And I do like that it adds a little bit of spice to the overall like runnings of the show. It keeps things very like interesting, because not only are they using swords against these hostile entities, but they're also, of course, because there are criminals to fight, there are rivals to show up. I mean, yeah, so the swords, they get put to good use more often than not. So I do appreciate that. There are a few cons to this. I mean, hey, nothing's perfect. The second half, I would say around episode 4, it does feel a little bit more predictable, and I think that's mostly because the cast of protagonists is very small, but also the cast of possible suspects for who is committing all of these crimes or who is behind the conspiracies, it's a little predictable. But I would say it's not so much to where you can absolutely guess what people are about to say or do. But at the end of each episode, where there's kind of a cliffhanger as to exactly like, oh, it turned out this person was behind this, or this person was the one pulling the strings on this person, and things like that. That was something that, I don't ever like to use that word, predictable, but, well, I mean, it was. That being said, maybe it's just that I've seen so many of these types of like mystery shows that it just kind of came together for me. I don't know. But another thing that I also felt for the second half was it became a little bit sluggish at times. So to solve these mysteries and or conspiracies, there are a few MacGuffin hunts, a few like MacGuffin chases, and there are also, once again, because our primary list of like suspects is so limited, I have to think to myself like, okay, well, it has to be this person. Why don't they, like, sometimes it does feel like the trio are just kind of chasing their tails. And I realize that in story, it's because they lack a certain amount of experience. They're supposed to be very young people. I think doing my research, I know that Lucy is about 15 years old, and I think they're more or less all within that age range. I mean, like, they might be slightly younger or slightly older. So anywhere from 14 to 16 for the main cast. They don't say it in the show, but I think it's because of that lack of investigative knowledge and experience that certain things that should probably be a bit more obvious are just having them just kind of, like I said, chase their tails and sort of like try to figure out what should be kind of simple as far as like, okay, like, oh, okay, this is who was behind it all along. And when you kind of feel, and this relates to back to the predictability, when you feel that as the audience member is like, okay, let's get this moving. It's like, there's only a few people that it could be. So, like in the episode where they're like, who could it be? Who's behind this? Why would they be doing this? Things like that. Like I kind of figure like, okay, let's put our thinking caps on. I'm not gonna give you the answer. Look over there. Just like it's. Well, we have 3 suspects, so here we go. But so it becomes a little bit predictable. When I say sluggish, it just feels like it languishes with kind of obvious sort of like mysteries. I do like, the MacGuffin hunts are not bad. I actually do prefer those over when they actually do have to connect the dots and identify their suspects and culprits. So I do prefer that, but there are times where it just feels a bit sluggish. So the second half of the season, pretty much up until the last 2 episodes are very brisk. They are very they are very tight, very action-packed with regards to solving the final mystery of the season and wrapping up, for the most part, all of the final details. I will say this, and my final sort of like con against the series, and I really don't like to put people on the spot. But when it comes to the character of George, I don't know. Like, I understand that perhaps as the intellectual of the group, he's supposed to be a bit more reserved. I guess? Because the actor struggles to emote so much. There are so many times with the camera, the cinematography usually has it to where when they're trying to figure these mysteries out, they'll zoom in on the faces to sort of like gauge the internal workings of the characters as they're trying to cooperate and come up with the answers to these mysteries and things like that. And whenever the camera is on George, he's just very deadpan, just blank expression. And that just seems so odd to me. It's like there are a few times where he does become emotional, but those are like rare exceptions for the shooting, for the footage and like that. Just like, because most of the time he's just very blank. And I realized, like, once again, maybe it's because he's supposed to be the intellectual. Maybe it's because he's supposed to be taking all the information in, so he's not. I say that, but the way that they have the characters patterned out, I kind of just have to come to the conclusion that it's just the performing ability of the actor. I don't know. So I will say this, as far as like the acting goes for the primary trio, unfortunately, the actor who plays George, there's always room to grow. So I wouldn't say that it was overall a terrible performance, but there's a lot of room for improvement. Let me see. With that, yeah, I mean, it's a very enjoyable paranormal mystery adventure series. Geez, I almost forgot. There's this convention in the series proper where every time Lockwood and Company show up for a job, everybody who is their prospective client, they gasp, "What? But you're so young!" Like, they treat them like they're 5 years old, and the meta version of me is like, come on, they're all in their 20s. Like seriously, like, oh, but we don't need, and because they use terminology, we don't need adults, we don't need the grown-ups. Like, y'all are in your 20s. Come on. Like, I know it is far less complicated to work with actors that are of legal adult age versus like younger actors for a number of different for a number of reasons. But everybody that comes and goes, "Oh, you're so young. You're so young. I mean, aren't you still in primary school?" I don't know what the British equivalent of elementary school is. Block A, Block 1, something like that. But anyways, but yeah, that is something that like does kind of get annoying, like time and time again. "Oh, but you're so young. Oh, I can't believe that letting kids like you do this. I mean, you're so small and you're vulnerable and weak and all this other stuff." Or like they just have like the generational sort of like humor. "Oh, back in my day, we knew how to fight ghosts," and things like that. But like, even if they are like middle or upper tier teenagers, they're still adults. So I mean, like, like everybody treats them like they're 10 years old or like younger. And so that is, it does seem kind of odd, like sometimes. But anyways, like I was saying, to wrap this up, I would still recommend the series. Like I said, it's very well paced. The aspects, the world building of the show, like, it's very well thought out. You can tell this is from, the source material is very well thought out, and a lot of bases have already been covered before the adaptation was undertaken. So that's a really big advantage there. And yeah, I do like the garnish of action throughout every single. There's never an episode where there's not some type of sword combat. So, and because of the context of the show, it makes perfect sense. And so I find it all the more enjoyable. So, but anyways, if you have not seen Lockwood Co on Netflix, I do recommend it. And I don't know, like, part of me is hesitant to get my hopes up with regards to any production schedule for Netflix, because it seems like the better a season 1 is, the easier it is for Netflix to get rid of it. I don't know why. Netflix, I mean, at least, because I think from the research that I did into the source material, or at least from what was available online, they did do a decent job of summarizing the better part of 2 or 3 books in this series in only 8 episodes. And it's really, to me, that's outstanding. Yeah. So, give this some attention. If you like paranormal adventure series, if you like paranormal action series, I would give this a strong recommendation. All right. Well, what about the rest of you? Have you seen Lockwood Co? What are your thoughts? What was your favorite story arc in season 1? Let me know. Let Netflix know via the algorithm or something. So hopefully we get at least a season 2, because it wasn't a hard cliffhanger, but you could definitely tell there is more story to tell. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.